Hello and welcome to SaltWire today for Wednesday, January 11th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. The province is adding around 600 more single long-term care rooms to help meet the needs of Nova Scotia seniors. By 2027, there should be 3,500 new and replacement rooms. The idea is to move the many seniors who are in hospitals and at home waiting to get into long-term care.
These are not simply more beds. They are brand new, single living spaces with private bathrooms where individuals can live with dignity while receiving the right care from our wonderful continuing care sector staff.
Operating costs for each room will be about $140,000 annually. Public Health says about 280 people are currently in hospital waiting for placement in long-term care. In the meantime, under the QE2 redevelopment plan, the government will create 2 transition to community centres for people waiting in hospital for long-term care and other community-based supports to stay temporarily. A request for qualified suppliers to build new long-term care rooms in Central Zone was issued in February. Negotiations are underway. A warning, a photo in this story may be disturbing to some viewers. 3 men stabbed in Halifax recently got word that CN is fining them $250 each for trespassing on the rail company's property that night. James Shanks was one of the victims stabbed in the stomach and the face. The stomach wound required 36 staples to pull together. All 3 were sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The December 29th stabbing took place around 7:45 p.m. as the men were using a popular local shortcut behind the Joseph Howe Drive Superstore that crosses the railroad tracks. They say they only met their alleged attacker that night through an acquaintance and say the man lost it and allegedly began attacking everyone in the immediate area. Halifax Regional Police couldn't say how CN Police got the names and addresses of the stabbing victims. Police charged 30-year-old Khadga Bahadur Mukaya Sunuwar with 3 counts of assault with a weapon, 2 counts of aggravated assault, and possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. He was released on bail January 4th on the condition that he stay at his mother's home in Clayton Park and stick to a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew. Police are still looking for the suspect in a stabbing that happened at an unsanctioned Dalhousie homecoming party in October. This photo was released today of the suspect. They're described as a man with shoulder-length brown hair, tattoos on his right arm, and wearing a dark shirt with a white pattern across the back, white pants, and white sneakers. On October 1st, police were called to the area of Jennings and Larch Streets in relation to hundreds of people who gathered for an unsanctioned homecoming party. Police say they were approached by a 19-year-old who had been stabbed, and he was taken to hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. A photo exhibition is on display in Truro Civic Square with pictures of Iranian civilians killed by their government during the current wave of protests sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini. SaltWire's Brendan Creamer has more on the setup that will be on display until January 14th.
The faces of Iranian civilians killed in protest are now visible along Truro Civic Square, acting as both a solemn memorial and a plea for Canada to do more to put pressure on the Iranian government. Organized by Iranian-Canadian Ziba Mashkari, she was welcomed by a large crowd of supporters who heard her, amongst other speakers, talk about the violence that continues in Iran. Stood next to Mashkari were 2 handmaidens, an allusion to Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, a comparison that aptly portrays the Iranian government's treatment of women. Protests broke out in Iran after the death of Mahsa Amini at the hand of Iran's guidance patrol. According to the organization Iran Human Rights, over 450 people have been killed so far. Some families are unable to claim the bodies of their deceased from the guidance patrol. While Canada has laid sanctions on Iran and restricted travel for some members of its regime, Mashkari and other supporters say that they want the government to also restrict travel for family of the regime. While the Canadian government has looked into this option, an official decision has yet to be made. While her exhibition was purely a local effort, Mashkari and others believe that informing people of the atrocities being committed is step 1 to making the Canadian government act in their favor. This is Brendan Creamer in Truro with the SaltWire Network.
It's time now for a glimpse of today's Thinking Out Loud with Sheldon McLeod. Today, Sheldon is speaking with Liberal leader Zach Churchill.
Now, I had an opportunity to speak with Elizabeth Smith McCrossin about the letter that she received at 11:40 at night, the email that she received about disclosing personal information. What was your thought when you heard that?
I mean, I haven't heard of that happening before. A public servant just before midnight on a Friday sending a cease and desist letter to an MLA. I really do not think that would have happened without direction from the Premier, or at the very least the Premier's Chief of Staff or the Premier's office. You know, that is a very unusual thing to happen. I think it's a very cold response to the situation. Elizabeth was representing her constituents at their behest. They asked her to do this, and she only shared information that was available publicly in the obituary of Ali. So it's obvious that she did nothing wrong. She was doing her job as an MLA, and I really perceive that letter that came from Justice to be intimidation and an attempt to try and silence her voice at a time when her constituents probably needed her the most.
And for Sheldon's full conversation, head to the opinion section of SaltWire.com. Time now for the Atlantic Sports Wire, presented by Scott Squires.
After a 3-year hiatus due to the pandemic, the East Coast Ice Jam is back. Joining me is Chris Guilford from the Dartmouth Whalers. Chris, how good does it feel to be back?
I think it's great. You know, it's after a couple of years away from the Ice Jam, I know these kids have been really excited to get back with the scouts in the stands and just a full rink. It's a great thing.
Your team got it going this afternoon. I know you're watching the first game now after 2 periods. How's it feel to be able to watch your team play at the Ice Jam again?
Well, it's a great, when you're up 2-1 after 2 periods, it's always a good thing. So just don't tell my boss I'm here.
Our secret. You mentioned, you know, being able to be here and the players being here, but ultimately, what does this mean for the young players that take part in this event?
Well, I think 3 years of not playing in the tournament, where we only have 2 tournaments that we have access to, it makes a big difference. These kids lost a lot of hockey over the past 3 years, even though they got to play the regular season, but the tournaments is really what these kids like.
You can learn more about the Ice Jam by visiting them online at icejam.ca. In Bedford, I'm Scott Squires for the Atlantic Sports Wire.
Thank you, Scott. On to weather now. To see what's coming up in the forecast, we're going to check in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Thanks, Kate. Well, it was great to see the sunshine today in HRM, but it certainly was chilly. We had wind chills in the minus teens this morning. But hey, it is winter after all. We have been spoiled up to this point, and I can tell you that temperatures will be soaring well above normal into and through the upcoming weekend as some unsettled weather arrives. This evening, though, clear skies and the temperature near -8 and another chilly start waking up on Thursday morning. Near -14 inland, likely closer to -10, -8 the closer you are to the coast. There will be a wind chill in the morning, but winds will be lighter, so not as bad as today. A mix of sun and cloud in the morning and throughout the day on Thursday. The afternoon high -3, but with relatively light winds. Really not much of a wind chill to talk about. But I've been talking about this Colorado low that will be moving west of us, heading into and through the upcoming weekend. That will develop rain in the Halifax region on Friday, which could begin as a very brief period of snow for inland locations. Won't amount to really anything. Temperatures will be soaring in the mid to high single digits, so this will be mostly a rain event. Rain at times heavy Friday, continuing throughout the day on Saturday. Still a bit of uncertainty with the heaviest rain that will be associated with this system, but right now amounts could approach or even exceed 50 millimeters here in Halifax, and winds will gust 60 up to 80 kilometers per hour on and off as we head into and through the upcoming weekend. That low moves off, and then watching a secondary low that will stall south of us, keeping unsettled weather in the forecast heading into the middle part of next week. So really, we're heading into an unsettled stretch over the next 7 days here in HRM, so enjoy the sunshine tomorrow. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to SaltWire.com. And you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.